we'll take Kathy Wood's prediction out of it, but for the next 12 months, for you, potential high, upside, potential downside.
I think downside is pretty muted at this point. Like, it's impossible to tell. There's always the external event that could occur. But I would say I don't see it going below like 50,000 at any point. I think we've kind of crossed over that Rubicon. In terms of upside, I think we get over 100,000 in the next 12, 18 months. Maybe we could get to 150 to 200, somewhere in that range. But like, we go up from here. I just don't think people should expect the explosive, 1,000% move from here through the rest of the bull market.
We're just fewer days away now until the Bitcoin halving, which reduces the supply of new Bitcoins. Currently, Bitcoin price is sitting at $62,710. Joining us now, Anthony Pompliano, Pomp Investments founder and partner. I want to talk about the halving. I want to talk about the run-up in the price. And also the flip of that, which we saw last weekend. You were kind enough to tweet back at me over the weekend. We were trying to understand some of the movements. Explain to the audience what you think has happened even in the past week, both in terms of the run-up and maybe this move lower.
Yeah. Well, let's put everything in context, right? Talking about Bitcoin is crashing to $64,000 was a dream just a few years ago. So we're up significantly. Since the last halving to today, about 4 years, we're up 800%. So it's been incredible performance. This year to date, it's about 40%. Compare that to gold. Gold's up 7%, year to date. And in the last 5 years, it's only up about 11%. Now, the reason why I bring that up, what I think is really interesting, is you actually have lost purchasing power if you've held gold over the last 5 years. Inflation has outpaced gold's performance. So the whole narrative of gold protects your purchasing power is now been debunked, right? For the last 5 years, that's not true. Bitcoin has. So when we start talking about this price run up, that 40% increase to start the year, all of a sudden, why is the price going up? ETFs are a huge piece of it. Also, I think people leading into the halving, that's a big piece of it. But the government has decided we are going to debase the currency, right? And I think that now the world has understood the United States has a debt problem and we're going to debase the currency. So there's some of that going on as well. Now, over the weekend, the price sells off. And I think there's really three things that drove that price sell off. The first is that whenever there's a moment of fear, right, everyone panics, and what do? They still buy dollars. And so some people are selling because of that. The second thing is, on the weekend, even though the Bitcoin market is open, the bank system is not open. And so you can't get net new dollars into your crypto account to buy Bitcoin. So the only thing you really can do is if you're holding Bitcoin, you can sell it. But most of the people holding Bitcoin are fully allocated. So they don't have dollars to go buy more Bitcoin. There's a very interesting dynamic where even though you want to buy more Bitcoin, you're closed out of the system as well because the banking system won't let you wire in.
You're saying people would have bought Bitcoin on Middle East tensions if the banking system were open?
The joke is that the real Bitcoiners want the price to go down so they can buy more of it.
So what have we seen since, since then in terms of the price of, we didn't go up a lot.
We didn't go up a lot, but we're basically flat since
so no one is buying
since Monday.
On the heels of Middle East tensions.
Well, I think that the other thing that's happening is that now Bitcoin is being pulled into the legacy system. And so now it's very hard to kind of prove this, but high-frequency traders and kind of more algorithmic trading, when all of the news hit Twitter and kind of the social sentiment changed very quickly, you saw a massive amount of tweets about Iran and Israel and rockets and drones, etc. There's a very quick sell-off. I find it hard to believe that humans were able to read Twitter, immediately go to their computer and start hitting the sell button. And so there's got to be some algorithmic trading that's going on there as well, where people are trading headlines.
So the folks who are selling likely are selling actual Bitcoin, not the ETFs, because this was happening
closed
over the weekend, right?
Correct.
And so, then the question seems like the natural follow-up is why were they not back in the market, either buy ETFs or something else? Put the algos aside since then, and on the back of what I imagine is you think a bullish sign on the halving piece of this, which is about to happen.
I think that markets are forward-looking, and part of my analysis is just that, we went up 40% because people are already pricing some of this stuff in. If we go and we look, we have Russia invading Ukraine, we have Hamas, Israel, now we have Iran, Israel. At some point, there's a less severe reaction to each one of these kind of geopolitical events, because I think people are starting to say, there are problems in the Middle East, right? And so, again, that doesn't talk down the severity of what actually happened, but I think that the financial assets themselves are becoming less sensitive to those movements. And then in terms of buying more Bitcoin, I do think that there's this very interesting dynamic of everybody that I know in the hardcore Bitcoin community, they've bought as much Bitcoin as they possibly can. The net new dollars that are going to come into this industry are going to come from Wall Street. Right. And so what is Wall Street doing? Wall Street's not rushing to go buy Bitcoin today. And I think that there's a lot of folks on Wall Street who don't yet even understand the halving. And so what's going to really play out here is over the next 12 to 18 months, we'll see that impact.
And they're not buying because, the only reason you wouldn't buy today, besides that you may not have the opportunity, which is to say there's an argument that, advisors, a lot of firms don't have it on offer yet. But There's also the view, I think, by some that the price is still going to come down. So how do you see? I mean, what do you see as the window for where the price sits right now?
Yeah. So if we look at price movements themselves, Bitcoin's down about 8%, 9%. In 2017 bull market, there was 13 drawdowns of 12% or more. There was 13 drawdowns of 10% or more in the 2020 drawdown from Galaxy Research. And so when you see that big of drawdowns, 8% is actually a pretty small drawdown compared to most times in bull markets. And so my expectation here is that Wall Street is probably trying to time the market a little bit, understand, what's the price level, so looking at technicals, etc. But over time, what we have found is that in these drawdowns, they're getting less and less severe. So the asset itself is becoming less volatile, which means that the upside gets more limited, but also the downside is muted.
We'll take Kathy Wood's prediction out of it, but for the next 12 months, for you, potential high, upside, potential downside.
I think downside is pretty muted at this point. It's impossible to tell. There's always the external event that could occur, but I would say I don't see it going below 50,000 at any point. I think we've kind of crossed over that Rubicon. In terms of upside, I think we get over 100,000 in the next 12, 18 months. Maybe we could get to 150 to 200, somewhere in that range. But we go up from here. I just don't think people should expect the explosive, 1,000% move from here through the rest of the bull market.
Welcome to the Crypto Teacher. And I come back with that video just to make you think.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
And make sure you join the Patrons. If you're not a part of the Patrons, make sure you're hitting the Cash App. And we are Pomp on CNBC giving predictions. But guys, we know only thing we have to do is follow the Fed and the emerging markets. We know once the emerging markets flip that switch, then the utility bull run is going to begin. But as the fourth industrial revolution get underway, we're going to be running into hyper deflation, and I'm going to get into that later. But again, more talk about the drums are beating is the reason why Bitcoin and crypto went down. Guys, Bitcoin was not the only asset that went down. The whole crypto market went down. So we know for a fact it was an algorithm, and we know Aladdin is undefeated, and we know who's controlling these algorithms are the hedge fund guys. We know the Fed just can't say, I took your money. A distraction has to come in order for them to drop it. It's like clockwork. It works every single time. Why would you change it? And remember, the Crypto Teacher told you. And we have Loomis and Gillibrand's stablecoin bill. And we know stablecoins are against the Constitution. But we know how the NWO does. They're going to write it on in. And that's what we're seeing right now. And of course, it's all about national security, AML, and then also it has KYC. But guys, why are we changing the system? Nobody never asked why. Why can't we stay in the same system we're in right now? Because fiat has a history. It always does. They just sped it up. They printed 80% of all money in existence in 2 years. Yes, you heard that correct. It's unbelievable. But you can do that when you have the sheet. They don't understand finance. They have no clue on how the system works. And they're definitely not going to understand crypto and how it works. And that's the reason why you're in the right place at the right time. So therefore, you can educate yourself. So therefore, you don't fall on the wrong side of history. And with this bill is 1-to-1, guys. That means you need a lot of liquidity. Real-time settlement. Remember, nothing is going to be real. And that's the reason why everything has to be tokenized and move from this real world to the virtual world. And then, of course, that's the reason why we're going to be running into hyper deflation. The level playing field. That's the reason why Janet Yellen is playing the Hegelian dialectic over in China, saying stop making so many goods. They're going to stop doing that anyway, because we're going to have mass layoffs in America. And of course, the NWO calls the problem, wait for the reaction, and run in with the solution that they've had over 20 years. They can't wait till all these layoffs, so therefore they can bring in the machines. And they're getting these stable coins ready. But little do the people know they're going to be programmable, telling you what, when, when, and how to buy, and you have 3 to 6 months to spend it or poof, it's gone. And Senator Loomis and Gillibrand happen to just leave that out. Wonder why, guys? I know why. Because they know. When it comes to the NWO, it's all planned out. You have a wonderful day.
I want to talk to you about where they stand and just handicap whether this is going to get through. I know there's been some talk, by the way, about adding this bill with some others that have to do with banker compensation, even marijuana and other things.
I'm optimistic. I think there is a certain amount of progress that's been made in this space that Cynthia and I have worked very hard on. We have great partners in the House with McHenry and Waters. So I think there's momentum. And if we can include this as part of the FAA reauthorization, it can be done quite quickly.
Are you looking, I mean, when you say quickly, are we talking about weeks? Are we talking about months? What do you think the stumbling blocks at this point?
We're getting really close to the time here in Congress where politics takes over policy. And so I hope we can do it sooner rather than later. But if it lands on the side of the equation where we can't get through the political morass, we might have to wait until later in the year. We're going to keep pushing for weeks rather than months.
Right. Through Tether and places like that, to places like Iran and Russia and others, and how concerned you are about that and how that relates to a bill like this.
Well, I think this bill is the first step towards really addressing illicit finance. This stablecoin legislation creates a framework where it rests on top of the dual banking system. It uses the protections of Know Your Customer and anti-money laundering protections in the banking system. This is a bill that's written to have 100% one-to-one dollar-backed. Custody has to be in a bank. And so you have all those protections in place in our ordinary banking system. And so this is bringing that level of transparency and accountability into blockchain and cryptocurrency. And the first, and I think the most important piece of this legislation, is to take stablecoin and put it into a proper regulatory framework so that we can have consumer protection, we can have transparency, accountability, and we can have certainty.
Yeah, the worst thing we could do if stablecoins are being misused around the world is to step away and not regulate them. The whole purpose of this bill is to protect consumers while we acknowledge the existence and use of stablecoins. And furthermore, Senator Gillibrand has included some language from the FDIC that in the event there were an insolvency or a failure, a conservatorship or a receivership could be set up. So it's contemplated that even with our one-to-one reserves that we require and our decision not to allow algorithmic stablecoins, if something did fail, we have that safety valve of the FDIC receivership language.
We also require that if a stablecoin is issued, that it's done by its own entity. It has to be a subsidiary, right. It has to be walled off, and it can have no commingling of funds with other assets.
Yeah, separately custody is important.
All of this sounds very important, particularly protecting the U.S. consumer. And I'm just curious because USDC, which is the stablecoin issued by Circle, is backed one-to-one U.S. dollars, and that's guaranteed. Tether is not. It's the more popular stablecoin, but that's more popular outside the United States. So how do you have data on how many U.S. consumers are involved with stablecoins outside, like a Tether they're not backed one-to-one?
So our bill is for U.S. issuers, and if you are not complying and not following the law, then you can be investigated. This has real regulatory heft and regulatory teeth. If you are subverting the law, you can be fined $100,000 a day. If you're willfully subverting the U.S. law, $200,000 a day. So this is going to really preclude bad actors from being in the U.S.-based system.
Going to a different economy, and we're going to be learning more about that as we go. But clearly, we're learning that things can be done from remote locations. We're learning that technology can replace people even more than we thought.
We're not going back to the same economy. We're recovering, but to a different economy, and it'll be one that is more leverage to technology, and I worry that is going to make it even more difficult than it was for many workers.
In Silicon Valley, and my friends who work in technology know that what we did to the manufacturing workers, we are now going to do to the retail workers, the call center workers, the fast food workers, the truck drivers, and then even bookkeepers, accountants, insurance agents, lawyers, and on through the economy. So what happened to the manufacturing workers is a very clear sign.
And so we'll import Chinese-based CBDC technology. So it's going to be CBDC in a box provided to you by the People's Bank of China.
But every stock, every bond, every currency, every commodity, every piece of art, every private business, every piece of real estate will eventually be a token on a blockchain, an entry on a ledger, permanent and immutable. We will have truth instead of trust, and we will save over $7 trillion a year. 6 to 8% of global GDP is wasted by the friction of the trust industry that's necessary when you have dual entry accounting. With triple entry accounting, which is what a blockchain is, we get rid of all of that friction. It's a beautiful future.
Like what you see in China and their social credit scoring systems, right? If we get identity wrong, it could be a tool to enslave humanity. And if we get it right, it could be a tool to liberate humanity. And as an American, I'm obviously rooting for the one that's on the side of freedom.
Bitcoin is an international asset. And also, I do believe the role of crypto is, it's digitizing gold.
I actually believe this technology is going to be very important. Look at it. We have been part of a huge revolution in investing through ETFs. We believe that ETFs will be changing the whole way we invest. Many people still use it as a means, people are investing it for indexing. No, the majority of people who are putting money in in ETFs are active investors that are buying exposure. The entire bond market is being transformed as we talk right now. I believe the next generation for markets, the next generation for securities will be tokenization of securities. And if we could have that distributed ledger that we know every beneficial owner, every beneficial seller, we all have our code of who's buying, who's selling, instantaneous settlement. And think about it, it changes the whole ecosystem.
Chinese bank ICBC has been hit by a ransomware attack, and the U.S. Treasury market, as a result of that, has been disrupted. This, according to the Financial Times. We're getting at more right now with Bloomberg's Shonali Bassick. Shonali, what do we know?
Listen, we have the Financial Times now reporting that ICBC, one of China's largest banks here, was hit with a ransomware attack. And remember, they're a very significant intermediary in the Treasury market. The SIFMA has told its members that this has been part of the reason here that the system is kind of clogged up, if you will, during that auction that we saw a little bit before. The attack had prevented ICBC, according to the Financial Times, from settling Treasury trades on behalf of other market participants. A large executive at a major bank also telling the paper that such a large party on the fixed income clearing corp creates major concerns, potentially impacting the liquidity of Treasury markets.
Now, it was not just a poor auction. It was absolutely lousy, and when the dealers have to step in to save a treasury auction, that's a rare occurrence. And very much a traditionalist. I like staying with the dollar. You know that from when I was there. It's make the dollar the choice. I hate when countries go off the dollar. I would not allow countries to go off the dollar, because when we lose that standard, that will be like losing a revolutionary war. That will be a hit to our country, just like losing a war. And we can't let that happen. And too many countries now are fighting to get off the dollar. And
Cryptoteacher and the New World Order book, plus the 3 Kids books. It's time to re-educate. Also, new to cryptos, Coinbase, Bitrue, Binance. Do not forget book links and crypto links are in the description. The stock channel, guys. Don't forget to go like, subscribe, spread everywhere. You have your Kobo, your chip stocks, your banking, your gaming. While everybody's sitting at home, get on stocks, the Seaver, the biotech stocks. And while everybody's at home wishing, they were still getting that free money. What are they doing? Drinking and smoking weed. Don't forget about those stocks, and you have a wonderful day. The most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. The storyteller sets the vision, values, and agenda of an entire generation to come. Steve Jobs. And guys, you know I truly believe in this. When you look at the New World Order, they're the storytellers. And that's the reason why I wrote my New World Order book. But guys, now it's time to change the current generation. And I wrote 3 kids books. You know, I love the Trinity because I understand the power that's in it. So I have 3 books. We have an opportunity to change the generation, to educate, not just me, but I want to show you that I take action on a daily basis. And I want you to take action on a daily basis. Whether it's your job, whether it's in your community, we have an opportunity right now to educate the masses. I posted this on my Twitter account. Please share, but this is a short clip of the 3 books. There's going to be a clothing line and action figures. Please get these books for your kids, nephews, cousins, friends, so therefore we can start the re-education now. Because as we see, the 4th Industrial Revolution foundation is definitely here. Robots, algorithms, drones, taking humanity out the picture. We have to re-educate. But let's get into the video.
Part 1. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save the village. Part 2. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save New York from COVID 33. Part 3. King Joshua and Grandma Tam goes to China.
It's mandatory to get part 1, part 2, and part 3 of this series. It's time to re-educate Generation Z.